Welcome to the Vault, where Central Illinois' best kept stories are held.
Well, welcome into the Vault. We're glad to have you here today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. So I'm Karalee Misner with the Solvr Group. We're strategic business consultants. We're based out of Macon County, so Decatur area, and servicing kind of regionally. So getting to know folks over here in Springfield.
Awesome. So what's your background?
Yeah, so I graduated from Illinois State University with a degree in public relations. And after that, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, right? It was a pretty broad degree. I knew I wanted to be in communications. I knew I liked kind of crafting messages, and I liked really being in the know before like the public knew things. It was really kind of cool to be behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
And be on like press release side of things. And so when I moved back home after I graduated, I got a job with our local Chamber of Commerce. So the Decatur Chamber was my first kind of real full-time job.
Okay.
And it introduced me to a ton of businesses and just in general how business worked. My parents my dad was a laborer and my mom like stayed at home and then, kind of worked odd jobs after that. So I never really had a professional introduction to like business. So it was really neat to kind of meet leaders of different companies and how just welcoming our business community was really like a defining moment where I kind of was like, okay, I think for-profit world is my jam, because you're kind of introduced with options, right? Do you want to go non-for-profit?
Right.
That kind of thing. And then beyond that, I kind of just wanted to build my skill set in a very well-rounded way. So I went on and did some marketing work, I did some sales work, and I also worked as a director of marketing for an agency. So it was actually the Decatur Park District. And so working in government work was a whole nother like kind of learning curve for me. And
I bet.
Introduced me to kind of that world of things on top of what I was kind of already familiar with and expertise wise. So throughout my career, Chris Phillips, who is my partner with me at the Solvr Group, he's always been a mentor of mine. He's just always been somebody that I looked up to professionally, and he's one of the first people I met when I worked at the chamber, and he was just really welcoming, and I always thought he was just super smart and intriguing. And so I worked for him at one point, and then we went our separate ways, and then he said, hey, I've started a consulting firm. I'm looking to grow it, and I need to bring somebody on. And so we chatted about that and decided it was the right time to kind of make that fit work. And so I've been on with him for about 2 years, and
awesome.
He's been open for about 6 years.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Very
so
cool.
it's been awesome to be kind of on the consulting side of the desk after being on the other side, and really getting that experience of what it feels like to work day to day in the business. And so bringing that perspective has been really rewarding for sure.
I bet. So tell us a little bit more about the Solvr Group. I mean, we know a little bit from talking to you and did a little bit of research, but tell folks that don't know what you guys do.
Sure. So boil it down, we solve problems.
Fair enough.
So, we have different kinds of clients. We don't necessarily have a niche industry, though we both have a lot of experience in the financial industry. So we've worked for and with like credit unions and community banks. And so understand kind of the ebb and flow of, needing loan growth and understanding, kind of what your community needs and how you can fit that niche. And both from kind of a marketing standpoint, but also, how to incentivize your employees to adopt things that you want them to do to engage customers. But then, beyond that, working with other community agencies as well has been a really, really cool partnership. So different school districts, park districts, economic development, corporations. Also, the mental health space has been a good kind of niche for us. We both kind of just really feel that pull to kind of help lower the stigma of mental health. And I think our kind of generation is definitely used to talking about it and wants to get it out there more. So helping different nonprofit organizations and agencies in our community that are working in the mental health space has been really cool.
Nice. Yeah. So what does kind of describe when you first start working with a company, what's your onboarding process look like?
Right. So everyone's different, right? So variety of industry, variety of needs. And so we don't, we like to say, like, we don't have a widget to sell. I don't have like this package that you can buy from me and say, okay, sign me up for that. It's more kind of discovering, because a lot of times when we're talking to folks, even at the leadership level, board level, they're describing a problem or an issue that they'd like to solve. And oftentimes it takes even time to just really define what the true problem is, because you might get to talking and realize, oh, the problem that you brought to us is actually a symptom of this other problem that we see. And so kind of discovering, kind of defining that problem is number one. And then from there, based on who we're working with within the business. So sometimes we work with internal teams alongside you guys to say, okay, there's something that the organization or business might be trying to implement, and your team, just needs some advice or guidance on how to do that. So we can come up with recommendations, and your team can execute it. Or sometimes we're working with a small staff and they're like, hey, we just need to outsource this special project, or we need to outsource this thing completely. Can you guys help us execute it? So oftentimes it starts with research first and foremost, and getting to know kind of what issues that there are, and then what ones are in our wheelhouse, and if not, we'll definitely recommend somebody else or another partner for you guys to work with if it's not within our wheelhouse, of course. So variety of projects at different levels, depending on the organization.
It sounds like you probably have to have a Rolodex of experts in a bunch of different areas that way, I would imagine, so where you guys play point guard sometimes and bring people in.
Sure. There's things, from a marketing perspective that we might, want to outsource some video work, right? For instance, so we've got partners for that, but 95% of what we do, from research to recommendations to implementation and execution, we do in-house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
so
cool.
It's something that's definitely needed at a leadership level. I think people that are thinking strategically, right, about the organization and the direction. Hey, we're looking at 2024. What are our plans? What are we going to accomplish in the new year? And some folks have that strategic plan, and then they just need help implementing it, right? It just sits on the shelf, and maybe people refer to it every now and then, but it really only helps the organization if you're working towards it. And so taking it from paper to actually, how do we prioritize it, maybe, and then how do we put resources towards it, whether that's fiscal resources, staff, time, energy, just priority from the top down, whatever that kind of internal looks like. Might be a project that we would work on.
So earlier you mentioned meeting with the different groups within the company. Do you ever have issues getting buy-in from particular groups on the project?
Definitely, right? So that's why it might be a problem, right? Maybe there's a project that the organization's like, look, we need to do this. We just can't get people on board with it. And usually that is something that folks have trouble managing, right? It's something that we actually train on, and we've done some presentations on for groups. It's called change management. It's something we've kind of coined with our own behavioral modeling method that we use. But yeah, it's you might have all the grand plans in the world to make these changes, but you need people to make the change, right? So they have to buy in, they have to get on board with it, and you have that communication loop of feedback and who's managing that, who's checking in, who's making sure, people are adopting this change that we're trying to make. And so that often is, something that might go in tandem with a strategic goal that they might be working on. So
you're probably doing a ton of coaching of managers and supervisors and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that falls in with it just because of our personalities. We are very... we want to take you by the hand, not by the throat. We're not going to come in and like assess, what you're doing and be like, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. We're like, okay, cool. Why are you guys doing this? Has it been working? If it is, awesome. Let's look at some other opportunities. We don't know until we get into it and talk to people. That's usually our first recommendation is okay, give me a list of 10 people in this target to talk to, because I want to know what's really going on, not what you think's going on.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, you're really kind of handcuffed if you don't get some decent transparency from the people you're talking to.
It does affect the outcomes, right? Because we don't want to spin our wheels working on something that's not really going to make an impact, right? Because at the end of the day, our goal is to help businesses on their goals, right? So whether that's growing revenue or whether that's growing, regionally, they want to maybe go into a new market and they're looking at, hey, can you help us look at what our competition is, or
Yeah.
which one of these communities that we might want to choose to go to, because we only have the resources to do one, so which one? Or,
Right.
you know, a lot of times folks are like, I've got 10 ideas, I just don't know which one to move
Yeah.
on.
Mhm.
So I don't move on any. So we're like, okay,
Mhm.
let's baby step it, and you can move more balls, you know,
Yeah.
than one at once. And
Yeah.
so, you know, it's really gets very intimate, I would say, like,
Right.
right, because we're talking about an organization's vulnerabilities, and
Right.
that takes a while in a sales cycle, if you will, to
Yeah.
establish that kind
Well,
of
that
trust.
that
So-
takes me back to one of the first things you said with enjoying, you know, the job where you kind of knew what was going on before everybody else sometimes, so that would be kind of fun. Like, you
Yeah.
probably get that with these companies
Yeah.
that you work with.
And
where
it
you,
is-
you know where they're headed next before, you know, a lot of people,
Yeah.
public or otherwise.
Yeah, and it's obviously all of our projects are under a contract that's
Right.
very confidential,
Yeah,
so it's
I figured that.
not something that I can bring and show you and be like, hey, this is what we do for other
Mhm.
people, because it's, you know, it's very tailored and unique to them. And,
Yeah.
and oftentimes, yeah, it's working with the folks that are making the decisions about what's going to happen next, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's really cool to help shape that, especially for our community, because we wouldn't exist without it.
Yeah,
So.
True.
So, do you ever have a situation where you go in, you speak with the heads of the company, and you get a feel for maybe what the organizational is struggling with,
Mhm.
and then you go to the teams, and it's something totally different, and
Mhm.
you have to go back and say,
Yep. Yeah. We are often the ones having those difficult conversations and guiding that, you know, because transparency for one, and being, you know, ethical about it would be a waste of everyone's time if we were working on a problem that was not really the priority.
Right.
yeah,
You know, like, we wouldn't recommend that they do that, so we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So it does take some digging sometimes when you see that there's a difference that you
Mhm.
need to maybe dig into a little bit and say, well, you're saying this, but you're saying that, and let's find out why. And,
Yeah.
you know, that might direct us moving forward on what we do, because we got to take that step first.
Do you have a win you're really proud of since you started doing this? Something, the company person, whatever, that was like, man, we really nailed that. We solved that issue.
Yeah, I would say it's something that it was probably a 3-year kind of project that we tried to get an organization to do, where, like, this is going to benefit you, this is exactly what you need, and it took a lot of convincing on not our part directly to leadership, but leadership to their other leadership team, right? So, and it was, you know, about putting themselves out there and saying, like, this is who we are, and this is what we're about. And it was a vulnerable standpoint, right? Because
Mhm.
in previous years, they've been kind of more behind the scenes, and, you know, people come to us and that type of thing. And so we finally got that implemented, and they have gotten compliments left and right, and it has had great outcomes. So I think just seeing the process of, like, starting from an idea that seemed so crazy that, like,
Mhm.
we would never do that, to now it's there and it's implemented and the feedback is positive is great, because of the message that is entailed with the project.
Nice.
I mean, it's a well-being message, and so
Very
it's,
cool.
you know, things like that you can see just evolve over time.
Yeah.
And it's really rewarding, because it is sometimes a very long game.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like something like that project you're talking about. You're kind of helping them navigate changing their identity maybe completely, which has
Sure.
got to be a lot of, you know,
Sure.
that would be stressful and exciting at the same time.
Yeah, and reminding, you know, as a consumer, right, whenever you see brands change, it's not just okay, now we're this,
Mhm.
right? You have to relearn that brand, and you have to really live it, and that exudes through your staff
Mhm.
and how they touch people. And, you know, there has to be maybe some plans to support that, so that it's not just, okay, we've got a new logo, now we're this.
Right.
Because we know, especially consumers these days, they're looking for authenticity, right?
Mhm.
They can see through the sales pitch.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got to really live it if you say you're about it.
Mhm.
So I think our guidance as a firm kind of differs from some other firms that might come in and, you know, right off the bat recommend some mass media or a big ad spend or add new staff. And
Mhm.
it's like, well, yeah, we would be doing that if that's what we could do.
Right.
So we kind of are able to find ourselves uncovering some of those things that are free for you to do, or you can implement with one team member, or just kind of the things that might be right in front of you. And so that getting traction and getting those wins quicker for our clients has been really rewarding. So we work with a lot of repeat clients.
That's awesome.
Because of that success rate. So
how are people finding you most often? Is it a lot of word of mouth?
Yeah, referrals definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Because of the work that we do, right?
Right.
It's just like, hey, you need to meet with these guys, and then I don't know what they can do for you, but you just need to meet with them and chat and see if there's anything there. So that's usually how it starts, and then we usually start with one project, and then if there's other opportunities, then we continue the partnership, and that's been really strong.
That's cool
for us. So. But yeah, that's why we're kind of over here in Springfield, to spread our wings a little bit, and we've got some friends over here, and my husband works kind of in the region, and so we thought there might be some folks over here that we might fit well with to help out. So.
Sure, there are.
Absolutely. How often do you work with startups?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a really great question, right? Because that's a whole different beast than what we call tier 2 current businesses, right? Individually, not a lot, but we do work with our local community college with some mentorship protege startup businesses.
Okay.
So they kind of funnel through, and we work with them on some marketing collateral projects to kind of get their businesses launched, but it's through a pipeline that we partner with. So
that's cool.
That's been really cool, just to again see the growth and diversity right in the business community. That's good for all of us. So doing what we can to support that's important. And we're a minority-owned business as well, so certified with the state, and so that's something that we're passionate about as well. And I'm like, really, girl power. That's my passion. I've got 3 daughters, and showing them that women can get out there and start a business, or be an executive, or be on the board somewhere that they care about and have a passion about is something that's not out of their reach. So anything that we can do to support that cause is right up our alley too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, some friends of mine actually after COVID, we were seeing things come back and networking coming back, but it was too slow for us. We're impatient, so we're like, we just need to start a group of like girls that just meet for lunch. Like, let's not make it fussy. Let's not have speakers and sponsors, and we don't need a 501c3. Like, let's just hang out once a month and have lunch. And so we call it Ladies Who Lunch.
Nailed it.
And we just, right, like
great.
simple as can be.
Yes, I love that.
And we just kind of go around to different local businesses for lunch, and sometimes it's 5 of us, sometimes it's 15, and it just depends on what works in your schedule. And
that's really cool.
we talk about, of course, what's going on in business, but it's all about the balance of like life and kids and passions, and, and what is the meaning of life? Sometimes is a topic of conversation. So that's been another cool way to just continue to stay active in the community, because I work remotely, and so I got to make the extra effort to
that makes sense,
do that. So that's been really cool.
How long do those lunches last?
Right.
Are you able to keep those to an hour or so for people?
Usually it is.
Okay,
all
right.
Hard stop 1 o'clock. Like, okay, if it's a Friday and you're free and you guys want to go do a happy hour, the rest of us are going back to work or whatever.
Yeah.
We're
That's
all
funny.
like, no judgment, whatever you want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that you get 15 people that have like-minded and get along really well. Like, an hour lunch is tough. Like sometimes one-on-one with somebody you like, an hour is tough. So
Yeah. And
curious.
it's like it's cool because those connections can be made, right? So you're like, oh, I sat next to you. I loved what we were talking about. Like, we need a separate lunch, right? Just you and I.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's cool too.
I imagine that probably happens quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think we're all busy, but we have that desire to like stay, in the know and connected, and you know, just have that camaraderie of other women. So yeah, it's been good.
So speaking of boards, are you serving on any right now that you're really excited about?
Not currently.
Okay,
Not
cool.
currently. I find myself in the car a lot, like just running from kid activity to kid activity.
That's fair.
We're really involved. We're a pretty tight family, and so we like to support each other and be there when we can be. So that takes up like a lot of my free time right now. So I would say like, not in this chapter, but like the next chapter.
Yeah.
Give me like 5 more years, and then my youngest will be like sick of me, and I can
fair enough
reclaim some of that. But yeah,
I've got time on. I've got some time available. I can serve on some boards now. There you go.
I've been looking, because once you kind of end your tenure on some boards and then decide what you want to go back on. It's like, oh, I want to be sure that it's, something I can give to, right?
Yep.
Something that I can fully
Right.
engage with and support and be a good board member for. So kind of weighing out those opportunities.
What's the number one issue that businesses are asking you to solve? What's the most common that you're hearing?
Probably what you already mentioned, which is getting people on board with current change, right? So through COVID, through, grants that came through the state, through financial changes, through maybe, over hiring and now you're letting people, all of those kind of, it's all change. And so there's a lot of change moving forward that folks are struggling to not only prioritize, like, what should I be focused on first, right? Because there's so many messages coming at us about what we should be doing as business owners and leaders, but also how do I get my team to truly be on board with this idea? How do I communicate that? How do I maybe get direction on what that should be, because maybe we're looking for it? And then everybody wants the tactical, like, what do I actually do? Like, what is something I can actually accomplish and do, not just some pie in the sky, like, plan, right? So it's awesome to work with clients and be able to see them kind of check those project by project off the list and say, okay, now look back over a year and see every little thing that you've done and how that's, there's a propensity to that, right? That grows your success rate. And so I think seeing that change is exciting, but it's also recognizing that it needs managed, and then how to do that, basically.
How has COVID changed your business? Are there certain strategies that you're using now that you weren't before, or are companies wanting different things now?
Yeah, I think an influx of money has been a major challenge. Maybe there's grants that have been supported for certain initiatives, but they have, X amount of years to do that initiative and to create that program, and then they've got to market it, and they've got to, get participants in it, and then have the outcome of people, graduating it successfully or whatnot. And I think that's been a real challenge, because it's like, okay, let's hurry up and spend this money, but then, okay, how do we actually spend this money? So having a plan to go with some of those unexpected dollars that came out of, CARES funding and other initiatives like that, that are really, there for the right reasons, right? And there to support the businesses, and they have all the good intentions, but at the end of the day, we got to show that we we did this. So I think helping manage that has been a new kind of arm of things that we take into account and incorporate when we're working with clients that maybe we didn't have before. We've always been remote, so that's nothing new to us. But I think helping businesses with the challenges that they have with remote workers, and even just a change in their dynamic of business. Maybe commercial made up 80% of their business before, and now folks aren't going into their offices.
Right.
And so now that need for their service has lessened. And so how do they shift? How do they respond? What is it that they can do to replace that? A lot of those questions are up in the air when it comes to leadership and what direction they want to lead their company or their organization in to be around for the next 10 years.
Right.
Because I don't think anybody has the playbook. Like, they don't know what to do, so we're all just trying to figure out how to respond to it. And I think, some are quicker to adapt than others. But I think recruitment, that's been another big, challenge that's come out of COVID that we've seen. It's like we didn't used to have a problem attracting more than enough applications.
Right.
And now we're struggling to get any qualified, let alone, or that'll call us back.
Right.
So looking at what are some of those HR strategies that maybe you can look into that you haven't before, because you haven't had to recruit this difficultly. You haven't had to convince someone to come choose you because they've got 5 other options on the table. So there's new challenges that come with recruitment, retention, obviously. How much are current employees taking on because of short staffing? How is that overwhelming them, and how are they still satisfied? So I think a lot of the shift of organizational just strategy is around that recruitment and retention piece that everybody's trying to figure out right now.
Yeah.
And new laws coming in 2024, and
Right.
you know, how to implement all of that. It's, you know, I think it's deep and it's wide, and there's all kinds of issues out there to solve. So we take them one at a time.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. That's
For sure.
So if a company here locally wants to get a hold of you guys, what's the best way?
Yeah, solvrgroup.com. You can read a little bit about us. Our direct contact information is on there. We're old school. We still answer emails.
There you go.
So you can actually email us and we'll answer, or call me up on the phone.
Is email old school now?
I don't know. I was thinking the same thing.
I was talking to a client the other day, and she was saying that. She's like, yeah, this guy told me he's been trying to get a hold of me for a year and a half. And she said, I asked him, have you been emailing me? And he said, yeah. And she goes, I'm a millennial. You have to get me on Snapchat or text.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, we'll pick up the phone if you call us.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm always amazed when somebody's like, what's your fax number?
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Please don't
I have
fax
no
me.
idea. Well,
Please don't fax me.
Right, and anymore, signing contracts, you know, through DocuSign and doing everything digitally, like I mean, rarely even need a printer,
Yeah,
let alone
sure.
I'm going to need to, you know, sign something and fax it. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So does your company have a Snapchat that you're...
We don't.
Alright, just
So,
checking.
and one of our recommendations to clients, right, is like be good at what you do.
Right.
And that can't be everything. So narrow down
Yes.
what content you want to create and what you can keep up with, and commit to that, and then grow it from there. But yeah, there's a lot coming at you at all times, especially when it comes to new trends in digital media, social media. But we're oftentimes trying to find the space where, you know, people aren't thinking about other tactics and ways that they can maybe increase or grow in what they're trying to do outside of some of those tried and true
Right.
things that are being thrown at them. So
Yeah, that paralysis by analysis thing, that's real. And it gets
is.
worse and worse and worse. So yeah,
It
trying to
is.
get them to focus on, you know, John always wants us to do TikToks for the bank, but
That's not true.
that's a common one. There's
It
a lot
is.
of marketing teams out there fighting people
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
saying,
I'm sure there's a market for it.
yeah.
It's
Are they saying they want them to use TikTok or don't use TikTok?
Yeah, like a lot of folks are asking, we should get a TikTok.
Yeah.
Should we get a TikTok?
Right.
My first question would be, you know, if you're B2B, then probably not.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Right? Because,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
Yeah, unless you got lucky.
depends
and-
on the situation.
Yeah, somebody saw it that was making those decisions for a company, but
Yeah, and then we start to ask, like, okay, well, what other things are you doing? And
Right.
then it's like, well, there's a gap here. Before you jump to that, let's fill in some of these things that maybe
there you go.
you know, you could do first. So
There you go.
we like to protect, you know, everybody's time, right? Because they already are doing jobs every single day, and just loading more to-dos on their list doesn't make good friends quickly. So.
Right. Right.
We're big on MySpace, so that's
Oh,
where
yeah.
all our
Yeah.
followers come
I
from.
never
Huge.
did have I never did have a MySpace.
Really?
I did not.
Man, you dodged that bullet.
I
Good for
know.
you.
I was really into illegally downloading music.
Oh yeah.
That was my
Nice.
jam.
Yeah.
Like on
that-
LimeWire. What was
LimeWire,
the
Napster.
yeah.
for sure. I can
Yeah.
tell you, like,
What
right,
a-
this was dial-up
What
internet.
Wild West that was.
And it was like our family computer, and you can just
Yes.
hear it. It's like you're waiting 30 minutes for like
Yeah.
a 3-minute song download.
Yes. Yeah. Every
Put it on my iPod, take it on the bus, though.
you were good to go.
I was
Every
yeah.
single family computer back in those days was like an FBI raid waiting to happen. It was like everybody had thousands and thousands of dollars of stolen music on their
You
computers.
definitely felt so. Yeah.
But
I did work in radio for a stint, and
Cool.
I did sales, but learned a lot about behind the scenes and learned about how infringing that truly is on artists, and
yeah.
and also all of the kind of the licensing, and that I'm like, I'm sorry for all my wrongdoing. Like, I really do feel.
Just wanted
I didn't
that mixtape so
understand-
bad.
I didn't understand like
Right.
how I was stealing from artists when I did that, and
You're
I'm
like, I
sorry
just
about that.
wanted people to stop talking to me on the bus.
I know.
That's all I wanted.
Yeah,
Just put my
yeah.
headphones in.
Yeah, we were on long bus rides, and I needed to sleep. So,
Yeah, there you
yeah.
go. There you go. Well, thank you very much. This has been fun.
Awesome.
Anything else people should know about Solvr before we sign off?
We appreciate the opportunity, you know, to come
Yeah.
on and kind of share our story. And I mean, I would just say in general, like having a thought partner, whether that's like a leadership coach or somebody that's helping with your strategy, you know, it's really something that can be a hard sell because some people, they can't see the value in
Right.
it. But I would say like giving that just a second thought, if that's something that you hesitate with, admitting that you might need some help with. It's one of those things that's like, we're not going to come in and take over. We're not going to come in and tell you what to do. We're going to collaborate with you and work
Right.
together. And it's so helpful to just have that other person to bounce stuff off of. And usually, we work with people that are coachable and that, look for that kind of in their life in general. It's who we work with best. So it works out.
Awesome.
You're my thought partner. Did you know that?
Yes.
There you go. You
Yes.
coined the phrase.
You need
there.
one, that's for sure.
It's true.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Boom.
Awesome. We nailed it.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you
good.
guys.
Check this out. Probably
That's
didn't
good.
record any of that.
The light was on. I double checked a couple times.
The Vault, where Central Illinois' best kept stories are held.